What if I told you that the only thing standing between you and the life you actually want isn't talent, time, or discipline? It's something much simpler, something that most people overlook. Not because it's complicated, but because it's uncomfortable. It's the thing that forces you to stand in front of others and to risk looking foolish and possibly even fail publicly. The reality is that most people would rather stay stuck than to feel that exposed. But the ones who move forward, the ones who build the life that they actually want, they all have one thing in common, which is that they're not afraid to try. Not because they're fearless, but because they've learned to put their pride aside and move anyways. And what I've noticed is that they've all mastered what most people never do, which is the art of trying. If you're like me, this does not come naturally. You wait, you overthink, and you convince yourself that this isn't the right time. But trying, like real wholehearted effort, is a skill. And the good news is that, like any skill, this is something that can be trained. So it's been about a year since I started posting on this channel, and reaching this milestone, it reminded me of something that my dad told me while growing up, something that has always stuck with me. He made an observation. He told me that if you think you're gonna fail, you often don't try, and if you feel any type of resistance, you usually give up. To be honest, hearing this from my dad, it really hurt because there's no reason for him to lie to me. But it was also helpful because it helped me to realize how this pattern was consistently showing up in my life. What I've learned is that it's in these moments of honest feedback from people who actually know us that we're forced to make a choice. We can either take it personally and regress, or we could take it constructively and grow. That moment opened my eyes, and I started to notice how the fear of failure started to shape a lot of my decisions. I avoided certain majors in college, and I backed away from certain career paths because I was afraid that I wasn't going to be good enough. And I would try to tell myself a different story, but deep down, I knew that it was fear. It was the fear of failing. This deep sense of fear of trying and still not measuring up. But here's one thing that I've come to learn. When something feels deeply aligned with my purpose, it's easier for me to overcome that fear. That's what happened with YouTube. Even though I was afraid of the criticism, I was afraid of looking dumb online for everyone to see, I still felt this pull to try. And I've even started channels before in the past with some of my friends. Back in 2020, we started a channel which was around college advice and the knowledge that we wished that we had while we were navigating college. Even though the channel didn't go anywhere and it ended up failing, it wasn't because it was a bad idea. It was just hard to coordinate 3 people around a YouTube channel. I never let go of that desire to create and build something. And recently, another one of my friends texted me who actually does YouTube. He's got a great channel. You could go check him out. I believe it's Day Cyberwalks. I remember visiting him in Dallas a couple years ago. And this is while I was still in anesthesia school. And I was trying to plot what I would do when I graduated because I knew that even though I would have my career, I always knew that I wanted to build something on the side. I had seen what he had built on YouTube. And I was just very impressed. I remember just picking his brain and asking him about how he was able to grow his channel and what advice he had for me. And this was 2 years ago that we were texting about growth strategies and advice and tips that he had for me. What's crazy about it is that just recently he ended up texting me to just encourage me and congratulate me on the progress that we've been able to make with the channel so far. What's crazy is that the last text thread that we had was about the YouTube growth. And even though for a year after that conversation, I didn't make any progress, I didn't do anything in terms of growing the YouTube channel, I, for some reason, never let go of that goal. It was always in the back of my head, nudging me towards it until I was finally able to step into it. So I'll ask you, what is one thing you've always wanted to do but never fully committed to? Like I mentioned, for me, it was YouTube. I had these ideas, this desire, this vision, but for some reason, I always held back. I remember just being so afraid of what people would think. But one day, I remember being so frustrated with this inaction that I literally just set up my iPhone and I started filming a video. And I decided that no matter what happened with that video, that I was going to post it, and that was going to be the start of my journey. And I ended up posting it, and I think it got 20 or something views within the first couple days. And I was excited about that. And I remember someone even commented, and my mind was blown. I didn't understand why someone would comment on it, but it just was the first action step that I took and the first commitment that I had to the process. But here's the thing, what I actually took out from that experience was that nothing bad actually happened. Despite all of my imagined fears, I still had my job, I still had my friends, and I still had my life. Because the truth is that no one really cares when you try. They only care and start to notice when it starts working. So in this video, we're gonna break down what it means to master the art of trying and how in doing so, you can change the trajectory of your entire life. The first thing that you're gonna have to understand is that it's cringe until it works. What I've learned is that anything that you start that doesn't have any momentum in the beginning looks cringe until it doesn't. It looks cringe until people start noticing and until the impact becomes real and people start to see that. But the issue is that most people are too afraid of looking stupid that they never push through that initial resistance that it takes to get started. And you have to learn to be okay with people misunderstanding you and understand that most people aren't thinking about you for longer than 3 seconds. So an important question, I think the only question that really matters, is how do you avoid being cringe to yourself? And I truly believe that the answer to that is being authentic and showing up in a way that's real and true to who you are. So speak from experience and share lessons that have actually helped you grow. And if you do that consistently, you'll start filtering people out. You'll start filtering out the people that probably weren't meant to be in your life anyways. Because the truth is that if someone can't appreciate the real you, then they don't need a front row seat to your story and your journey. Okay, so the second step in mastering the art of trying is committing to the long game. I'm not talking 30 days or 6 months. I'm gonna need you to give it 3 to 5 years. Everything I've truly seen success in, whether that was a business venture, going to the gym, a career, side hustle opportunity, I decided within myself that I was going to give it at least 3 years before I even thought about quitting. And that's how I measure if I'm serious about something or not. If I can't see myself doing it for 3 to 5 years consistently, then honestly, it probably isn't worth starting. Before I started this YouTube channel, I had that same talk with myself. I decided that once I committed, that I was going to keep showing up, whether or not the channel took off or not. So whether I was getting 10, 20, 30 views, no traction, I decided that I was going to keep posting a video once per week, and I was going to commit to that for the long haul. And that was just a decision that I made to fall in love with the process rather than the result. And I learned this really from going to the gym for so long. I realized that if you just focus on the result, it's going to be harder for you to achieve your goals. But if you focus on just showing up every day, even if it's not 100% every single time, then you're making a lot more progress than the people who show up with only intensity. And it's the same thing with the Instagram page that I started a couple years ago and ended up selling recently. I talked about this in another video, but it was the same exact conversation I had with myself, that I was going to commit, and I committed before I had any evidence, before I had any results. I just decided to commit to the process. So 6 months to a year, I think that's honestly just a warm-up period. But the truth is that most people quit after 2 weeks of not seeing any results. But here's the truth. If you're able to give up on something after 2 weeks, then it probably wasn't aligned with who you are to begin with. For example, when I was on the medical school path, I remember looking up how I could use my medical degree to go into business. And even though I didn't know this at the time, that was a sign. It was a blatant sign that I wasn't really passionate about becoming a doctor. I was more passionate about building things. I was more passionate about creating and entrepreneurship. And once I allowed myself to fully commit to those things, then everything started to change. And the truth is, until you hit that level of commitment, you'll struggle to stick with something long enough to actually see it grow. All right, guys, just about finishing up getting some work done here. But I was running earlier and I completely scraped up my knee. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's actually disgusting. I feel like I've been so injury prone recently between like messing up my ankle at soccer, and I was just running and I tripped and fell. I haven't done that since I was like a toddler. And then getting sick from COVID, I just feel like I just need a break, man. I'm trying to get back into running. If you guys remember, I'm training for a 5K against some of my friends in September, and that's coming up pretty soon. And I'm trying to win this thing, but I just keep getting injured. But we're gonna push through, and I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win this bad. gonna win this bet. Okay, so the third thing that you have to do in this quest to master the art of trying is you have to find your tribe. You have to find your people. And I find this especially important when you're chasing a dream that's unorthodox and something that a lot of people might not understand. Like right now for me with creating content, I've kind of given up on explaining why I do it to people because the people who get it understand and the people who don't get it will likely never understand. And that's okay. It's not meant for everyone. But once you're able to surround yourself with the people who do understand and think like you do, this is one of the quickest cheat codes to success. And I honestly don't think it's a coincidence that as soon as I committed to this non-traditional path, God started to send people into my life that were pursuing similar things. My awareness also shifted, and I started noticing people on this path a lot more easily. And I started drawing inspiration and motivation from them. And what I've noticed is that when you do this, the journey starts to become lighter and your goals start to feel real and tangible. In the book Think and Grow Rich, which I highly recommend for everyone to read, Napoleon Hill actually talks about this when he talks about the concept of masterminds. He describes a mastermind as a coordination of knowledge and effort and a spirit of harmony between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose. He also says that no two minds ever come together without creating a third invisible, intangible force, a third mind. He even referenced people like Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and Andrew Carnegie, who all used the principle of the mastermind. Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest guys to ever live and the inspiration for a lot of Napoleon Hill's work, said that he surrounded himself with 50 different guys. Pause. But he said that this was just to encourage him and that this was the power of the mastermind. Now, this isn't a pitch for my $20,000 mastermind group. This is just a reminder that you weren't meant to do this alone. When you surround yourself with people aligned with your purpose, everything accelerates. Okay, so the next thing that you're gonna have to do is start with what you have. One of the biggest things that keeps people from trying is this belief that they're not ready. You might not feel qualified or you feel overwhelmed and you convince yourself that the conditions have to be perfect before you even get started. Personally, I remember thinking that I needed the right camera, the right equipment, the right background, the right lighting. Basically, whatever excuse fit the moment is what would stop me from starting. And you can build up this whole story in your head where you truly believe that you cannot start until all of these things are perfectly in place. But the truth is that there is no perfect time to start. There is only right now and with whatever is already in your hands. The ironic thing is that what you'll find is that clarity starts with movement. Once you begin, the path starts to reveal itself. But you can't expect to see the full road if you're still parked. And yes, it's going to feel overwhelming. That's actually a good sign. Being overwhelmed is a sign of growth. It means that you're doing something new and that you're stepping out of your comfort zone. And this is exactly where growth happens. And I think Dan Coe says it perfectly. He used to be one of my favorite creators. And he says, you're supposed to feel overwhelmed. It means you're doing something new. You're taking a new path. You're learning. You're growing. You branched into the unknown, and that's admirable. Over the last 365 days, I've learned a lot. And while I would love to tell you that it's easy to step out and do something when you don't know what will happen, the truth is that it's just not. And that uncertainty is exactly what paralyzes most people and keeps them stuck for years. But what I've learned is that if you never step out in faith, you'll never experience what true alignment, fulfillment, and joy actually feels like. Every good thing that's come out of my life, whether it be relationships, different opportunities, or even the growth of this YouTube channel, has come on the other side of risk. A risk that had no guarantees. Even when rejection and resistance showed up, those moments shaped me. They refined me and pulled me closer to my purpose. So here's my challenge to you. Try more. Look stupid. Be cringe. Because one day, when it all starts working, you'll be glad that you did. So if you're trying to build a life on purpose and intentionally, I share my weekly thoughts in a newsletter that you can sign up with, and the link in the description. All it requires is your email address. And also go ahead and hit the like and subscribe and comment down below anything that resonated with you in this video. It really helps out the channel and I really appreciate it. But I will see you guys in the next video, but you already know. Until then, don't drift.